I don't like to start off a video being me just talking with nothing over them, but I want to make this important. For this video, there's a big seizure warning, as some clips have rapidly flashing lights. This only applies to Mega Man 1 through 6, but that's still a bunch of weapons and footage, so it will show up every now and then. I don't want this to be a detractor from the video, but this is very important, so I need to say this before the video starts. With that said, let's get to the intro. Before we get into the video, I want to get into some background info about my experience with making the video. This video has been in the works for several months. The script took almost a month. Making the list concrete not only took 2 months, but it took the help and suggestions of many other people. Getting footage took 4 months, with constant breaks in between. In editing, I don't even want to know, but it's probably been several months. This video will be by far the biggest I've ever worked on, and probably will ever work on, as it's been incredibly tiring. Anyways, I present to you the Mega Man 1 to 11 special weapons, ranked from worst to best, my YouTube magnum opus. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get onto the intro. The special weapons of the Mega Man Classic series are really cool and shake up the gameplay. Some are good, some are bad, some are weird to say the least. But what they all have in common is that they can be ranked on a tier list. Today, I'll be ranking every special weapon from Mega Man 1 to 11 from worst to best. I want to clarify, I am only ranking the weapons from these 11 games, and I'm only ranking the weapons you get from the Robot Masters, so the free Mega Man killers don't count for the list. No Super Arrow, no Mega Man and Base, no Game Boy games, and no Powered Up. Skip to this timestamp if you want to get to the ranking itself. Also, I'll be ranking the averages for each game at the end of the video. Here's some final things I'll say before I start the list. I tried to make this list as objective as possible, but this is still my opinion, and the list was very hard to make. If you have anything you want to say about the list, because there is something you won't agree with on here, let me know in the comments. If you want the damage charts for the games I mentioned, I will have a damage data chart in the description. You'll have to find certain games from there. I ranked every weapon by using that weapon in a playthrough as much as I reasonably could and ranking it from there. And finally, I'll give a short explanation of each weapon for those who don't already know what they do. With all of that said, let's get on to my biggest video yet. F-tier weapons are either useless, bad, or just straight up don't work. If you're using these, you're only using them for bosses, and even then, there's better options. Thankfully, only 3 weapons are in this tier. Thinking of the worst subject on a list usually isn't that easy, but I had an immediate answer for this one. Number 86. The worst of the worst is Spark Shock. This weapon will shoot an electric energy ball directly forward. Up to 2 of them can be on screen at a time. When the Spark Shock hits an enemy, they will be stunned for 5 seconds, staying in place for the duration. Up to 2 enemies can be stunned, and if a non-stunned enemy collides into a stunned enemy, the colliding enemy will get stunned, and the collided enemy will stop being stunned. This weapon does no damage to enemies, and as long as an enemy is stunned, you cannot switch weapons. Stunned enemies still have their hitbox, so they can still hit you. It's the weakness of Magnet Man, Spark Man, Doc Air, Doc Bubble, and the first phase of Wily Machine Free. It's a secondary weakness of Doc Metal, 8 bosses take 1 damage from it, and every other boss is immune to it. This weapon is just bad. I mean, it's down here for a reason, but to get into why it's at the bottom, the big enemies you would want to stun either don't get stunned, you can just slide under them, and for bosses, a lot of them have other weapons that are better. Let's name all of them. For Magnet Man, Doc Bubble, and Spark Man, the Shadow Blade hits more angles and does the same damage. For Doc Air, Magnet Missile is able to hit it from a greater variety of spots, and does the same damage, but both weapons are as effective as each other if I had to say. For Wily Machine Phase 1, does the same damage for each hit, and it's the weakness of the second phase. Every other boss that Spark Shock can damage has weaknesses that are at worst as good as it. This weapon is almost useless, and is at least equally matched by a different weapon in every scenario. Don't use this weapon at all, I beg you. Not too far behind is number 85, Super Arm. This weapon can only be used if there are heavy rocks you can pick up. If you do find them, you will be able to carry and throw them, and throwing them will have the rock thrown in an arc, and when it hits a surface, it will turn that heavy rock into 4 smaller ones. You cannot climb ladders if you are carrying a rock, and you're forced to stay in place if you use it on the ground. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use. for a total of 14 uses before needing to refill weapon ammo. This weapon is the weakness of Cutman in CWU-10P. It's a secondary weakness of Electman, Gutsman takes 1 damage from it, and every other boss is immune to it, due to no blocks being present. The problem with this weapon is that you can only use it if the aforementioned rocks are there, and they are only in some stages, being Cutman, Gutsman, Electman, Wily Stage 1, Wily Stage 3, and Wily Stage 4. But Gutsman practically doesn't count, and the rocks that can be used are barely in some of them, and this weapon is only usable against 4 bosses. The Thunder Beam can also break blocks like the Super Arm can, making it even worse. Here are the few good uses of the Super Arm. It's good against Cutman in CWU-10P, it can get the Magnet Beam in the earliest possible way without glitches, and it can 2-shot the Big Eyes. Granted, there are rocks to carry in the first place. While you get a decent use when you can use it, you can't use it for so much of the game, and when you can, most of the time, there's a way better option. Finishing off the F tier is number 84, Hyper Bomb. This weapon is thrown in a small arc. It will bounce 3 times when thrown. It explodes after 3 seconds, having a moderate range. If the weapon touches a ceiling while it's being thrown, it immediately stops moving. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before needing to refill weapon ammo. This weapon is the weakness of Gutsman. It's a secondary weakness of Iceman, Cutman, Electman, Copy Robot, and CWU-10P. 2 bosses take 1 damage from it. 3 are immune to it. Since this weapon is so slow, every enemy in the air may as well be immune to it, and it's very hard to use against moving or shielded enemies. You're defenseless while the bomb is on screen, so you're vulnerable for 3 seconds every time. This weapon does good damage, enough to one-shot most enemies, but it has short range, and it's really slow. The funny thing is, this weapon has an easy fix. It would be a lot better if it blew up on contact with an enemy or surface, and it would be a lot higher on the list. The thing that puts this over the Super Arm is that it's usable whenever you want to use it, but other than that, that's all I can say about this weapon. It still sucks. E-tier weapons are pretty bad. They can be used, and they do things, but there's not too much reason to use them other than bosses. This tier has 4 weapons, 1 more than F tier. Starting off E tier is number 83, Power Stone. This weapon will have 3 stones go in a circle and spread out across the entire screen. You can't use the weapon again until all of the stones are off screen. You can circumvent this by entering and exiting the pause menu, because it despawns the stones. This weapon is the weakness of Charge Man and one of the weaknesses of Dark Man 4. Wily Capsule is immune to it, and every other boss takes only 1 damage from it. The damage of this weapon is pretty bad, too low for how hard it is to hit enemies. Getting close to enemies and using the pause trick does help, but it doesn't fix the issue. The stones can also get destroyed or reflected by projectiles, and they can ding on some enemies. This weapon can work in some situations, especially against enemies with very odd angles, but it doesn't work in most of them, and a lot of other options are better. The Power Stone's just bad. What can I say that nobody said before? Number 82, Bubble Lead. This weapon shoots a bubble that travels along the ground. The bubbles can travel down walls, but they can't travel up walls. Up to 2 can be on screen at a time, and 1 point of weapon energy is consumed every other use, or infinite if you weapon swap before the other use. It's the weakness of Heat Man, Pico Pico Kun, and the only way to hit Alien. It's a secondary weakness of Flash Man. 2 bosses take 1 damage from it, Bubble Man heals from it, and every other boss is immune to it. The traveling down walls thing is only useful in a few scenarios. The damage is weird. It's good on some enemies, and sad on others. It dings on almost every enemy in the game, only being able to damage 10 of them, 2 of them coming from other enemies. Air enemies are also a massive problem for this weapon, as not only are most of them immune to this weapon, you have the small aerial range of the Bubble Lead to worry about. It's just too situational and works on too little things to be used often, but at least you're forced to use it. Number 81, Water Wave. This weapon will send out a water wave on the ground, which travels down walls if possible. The water wave will keep being active until it hits a wall or enemy. If it kills an enemy, it pierces through them and continues being active. It can also absorb weak projectiles, and it gets stopped by the stronger ones. You cannot use this weapon in the air. Some levitating platforms, when gravity is flipped in Gravity Man stage, are on the very end of a ledge. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before needing to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Starman in Darkman 1. 10 bosses take 1 damage from it, 5 are immune to it, 4 of them because you can't hit them with it. The Water Wave does weird damage, both the same damage that Star Crash and Napalm Bomb does in some cases, and since you can only use this weapon on solid ground, this makes doing damage very difficult in some situations, and it can be very annoying as well. This weapon doesn't do enough to justify the damage and its many inconveniences, which puts it down here. Closing the E tier is number 80, Atomic Fire. This weapon will have you start charging, and you can use 3 different variants of this weapon. The uncharged version, which you get instantly and consumes 1 weapon energy, the semi-charged version, which you get after 3 seconds of charging and consumes 6 weapon energy, and the charged version, which you get after 4 seconds of charging and consumes 10 weapon energy. All variants shoot a fireball that goes directly forward, and you can have up to 2 of them on screen at a time. This weapon is the main weakness of Woodman in the first phase of Wily Machine 2. It's a secondary weakness of Airman, Quickman, and Flashman. 5 bosses take low amounts of damage from this weapon. 4 bosses are immune to it, with 2 of them healing from it. Being Heatman, the uncharged version, is weak and tiny, but the most usable of the 3. The semi-charged version does moderate damage, is medium-sized, but can only be used 4 times before needing to refill weapon ammo. And the charged version is a nuclear bomb, but only has 2 uses before having to refill. It's completely ineffective on some enemies, even though the other 2 versions hurt them completely fine. If you charge Atomic Fire, but you have less weapon energy than the variant you're trying to use, you stop charging, and you have to charge again. The semi-charged and charged version use too much weapon energy to be worth using, and the uncharged version is very weak, which doesn't help. Against bosses, for all of them the Atomic Fire can hit, other than Woodman and Wily Machine Phase 1, you won't be able to finish the bosses off with only the semi-charged and charged versions, which makes the uncharged version the only way to beat them with just this weapon. It also heals Heatman, which isn't surprising, it's a common trend with Mega Man 2 bosses. The main problem with this weapon, and why it's so low, is because it spends too much weapon energy with the variants you would actually want to use, and the uncharged version is super weak. While it's a cool weapon, it spends too much energy to be worth using. D-tier weapons can actually work, and can be used in some scenarios, but they have big flaws, and not worth using most of the time. This is the first big tier on this list, having 11 weapons, more than the last 2 tiers combined. Number 79, Freeze Cracker. This weapon will shoot an ice shard. You can throw it in every cardinal direction other than directly up and down. When it hits a surface, it splits into 6 smaller shards that go in the aforementioned directions. This weapon can freeze the lava in Jugman stage, change the weather, and freeze the cloud platforms in Cloudman stage, and freeze the burners in Turboman stage and Wily stage 2. This weapon is the weakness of Slashman in Burstman. It's the secondary weakness of both base fights. 8 bosses take 1 damage from it, 4 are immune to it, with Freezeman healing 4 health when he gets hit by it. The damage on this weapon is low, barely more than an uncharged Buster Shot, which is really bad against tanky enemies and mini-bosses. Since the ice shards do the same damage as the big one, they also struggle in terms of that, and while they can get enemies at angles no other weapons can, by the time you kill them with it, you could have moved on in the stage. This weapon isn't terrible, it hits at good angles, the smaller shards can hurt many enemies, and a lot of interactions with the stages. It's just the damage is so bad, it ruins this weapon. Number 78, Thunderwool. This weapon launches a thundercloud a short distance away from you that will slowly rise until it reaches the top of the screen, or hits a ceiling. If the cloud can do this without killing enemies, it will send out a lightning bolt that will strike downward from the cloud to the bottom of the screen, or the ground. The lightning bolt will linger for about 2.5 seconds. Up to 2 of these can be on screen at once. And if you send another one while the first one is still on screen, it will go an even shorter distance. This weapon consumes 4 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Pump Man, Weapons Archive Tornado Man, and Crab Puncher. It's a secondary weakness of Nitro Man, Weapons Archive Slash Man, and the Block Devil. Wily Capsule and the Mega Man Killers are immune to it. This weapon does bad damage with the Cloud, but good damage with the Lightning Bolt, as it can hit enemies several times. This weapon is pretty good against enemies that appear from pits. Granted, positioning can be annoying, but when you get it right, you won't have to worry about them. However, it has short range, so it's risky to use against enemies, and the Lightning Bolt has a short horizontal range too. Since you have to get so close to damage enemies anyway, this weapon can have the Cloud itself hit enemies instead of the Thunderbolt. On certain bosses, like Nitro Man, Weapons Archive Slash Man, and Block Devil, have weaknesses or other weapons that outclass it. For Crab Puncher, while the Thunderbolt can hit several times, is more usable due to having more ammo, it has more range, and it does the same damage for each hit. The only ones that the Thunderbolt is really effective on are Pump Man and Weapons Archive Tornado Man, and even then, you have to be careful while getting up close. This weapon isn't good. By far my most hated weapon in the series. The ammo and range issues are bad enough, but some of the uses it does have are either outclassed by other weapons or very risky. Number 77, Charge Kick. This weapon is the most unique special weapon on this list. You will be invincible from certain stage hazards and enemies while you're sliding. You can't use your buster, and you can't use this in the air. This weapon is the weakness of Wave Man. 5 bosses take 1 damage from it, and 11 are immune to it. 6 of them because they can't get hit with it, due to the bosses staying in the air. This weapon is very weird. The damage on this weapon is low, not enough to kill most enemies, but on the weakest ones, it will get the job done. Air enemies are a lost cause, and if you're damaging an enemy that has a wall next to it, you'll get hit and take unneeded damage. The invincibility is useful, but it's not too effective on big and tankier enemies, or those that ignore the invincibility. This weapon can work, but you're put at a massive disadvantage, since you can't use the buster, making your range meaningless. You'll take damage due to enemies. Passing through smaller enemies though, helps keep the pace going, and you get through the stages faster to an extent. So this weapon isn't useless, it's just very situational. Number 76, Time Stopper. This weapon does exactly what it's named. It stops time. Time will be stopped until the energy of this weapon runs out, and the time will be increased if you pick up weapon capsules when time is stopped. It can also be stopped if you die while time is stopped. All enemies, bosses, and stage hazards will be stopped, but they can still damage you. In the case of enemies, some can still spawn. You are defenseless while time is stopped, as you cannot use your buster. You also can't switch special weapons until it stops in the aforementioned ways. This weapon is the weakness of Quick Man. The Time Stopper does no damage to anything other than Quick Man, but even then, you need Quick Man to be at half health or lower and close to a full bar of ammo to kill him. Every other boss will be frozen, with no damage being dealt, effectively pausing the fight. There are some sections where you can use this weapon. Quick Man stage, especially the laser parts of Metal Man stage, due to the crushers or drills. Wood Man stage, since it keeps the Wolf mini bosses from spawning. Bubble Man stage, after the first mini boss section, or on the Crab section. Heat Man stage in the first part. Crash Man stage on the ladder climbing section, and Wally stage 2, with its crusher sections. A kinda weird thing is that sometimes when you're gonna use it, you'll probably have some weapon energy left over by the time you get past the obstacle or enemy spawn points you were avoiding. The Time Stopper is good in stages when skipping segments other than Quick Man. Number 75, Gravity Hold. This weapon will do 1 damage to every enemy on screen. If an enemy dies to it, they don't die normally, instead being flipped and sent off screen. The Gravity Hold uses 4 weapon energy per use, for a total of 7 uses before needing to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Gyro Man. 3 bosses take 1 damage from it, 13 are immune to it. This weapon is good against weak enemies that die in 1 or 2 hits, as they can be killed really fast, but this weapon is really bad against tankier enemies, as you have to spend even more weapon energy energy than you're already spending, and anything with 8 or more health is a lost cause. The gravity hold is terrible against bosses, as you can only hurt 4 of them, and the rest are immune, and while the flipping's cool, you can't get weapon energy by doing this, which hurts its overall usage. If the gravity hold did more damage, this weapon would be higher up on the list, but as it is, it's a weapon with a solid use that's held back by weapon ammo and the problems it makes itself, which makes it situational. Number 74, Plant Barrier. This weapon will have some petals spin around you and protect you from some attacks. You can move around while the shield is being used, and the shield can absorb a projectile, but it disappears in the process. There are gaps in the petals though, so you can't get hit if you're unlucky. This weapon uses 4 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Tomahawk Man. In Rounder 2, 7 bosses are immune to it, the rest take 1 damage. The shield itself does great damage, being able to kill tanky enemies in 1 free uses, and due to it being a shield, it can deal with enemies that come from pits efficiently, so you don't have to deal with their annoyance. However, it spends way too much weapon ammo to be worth using, a lot of the time, and since you can't throw it either, there's a good chance the shield will disappear on something you don't want it to. This weapon has good things about it, the damage and projectile protection, but the ammo issue is way too problematic to make this weapon what would otherwise be a great shield. Number 73, Leaf Shield. This weapon summons a leaf shield around you. The leaf shield will stay up if it kills an enemy. If you move when you use it, it's thrown. You can throw directly up, down, left, or right, depending on the direction you moved in, but jumping won't throw the shield. It will pierce through any enemies that die to it. It does not consume weapon energy until you move, or if an enemy is strong enough to absorb the shield. If the leaf shield hits anything immune to it, it dings, and the leaves fall slowly while not doing damage. This weapon uses free weapon ammo per use, for a total of 9 uses before having to refill. This weapon can only hit Airman. Every other boss is immune to it, and it heals both Alien and Woodman. The leaf shield is really good for farming weapon energy if you know the proper spots. It's also good in usually annoying areas, like the climbing and moving platform sections in Crash Man stage in Wally stage 4. It has decent damage overall. Proper usage of it can bring some enemies down fast, while others take a bit. Unfortunately, it dings on a good amount of enemies, and every boss in the game except 1, and being forced to stop moving if you want to keep it up for a while doesn't help. It also can't protect you from projectiles, making it a shield only used for enemies that have to touch you to damage you. It's not a terrible weapon, it just has big flaws and ends up being situational. Number 72, Crash Bomber. This weapon will shoot out a pointed bomb. If it hits a small enemy, it does light damage and pierces through enemies that die to it. If it hits a wall, shield, big enemy, or an area immune to damage, it explodes for about 1.5 seconds. In the case of a wall, it'll stick to the wall for about 3 seconds before exploding. It will also break these destructible blocks, opening new routes and stages. This weapon uses 4 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 7 uses before needing to refill. This weapon is the main weakness of Flashman and Boo Beam Trap. Although it's the only weapon that can damage it, it's a secondary weakness of Quickman, Woodman, Bubble Man if you get him close to a wall, and both phases of Wily Machine too, albeit you have to be precise. It does heal Heatman and Alien though, so it's detrimental there. In the case of Heatman, it can make his pattern go crazy, doing whatever this is. The damage of the Crash Bomber is super inconsistent. It's generally alright, but it doesn't do enough damage for the amount of potential setup you may have to do. It also does depend on how close the Crash Bomber is to the enemy you want to target. This weapon's main issues are its speed and ammo. You only get 7 of these before you run out of energy, and it takes 3 seconds to start exploding, when you could have killed the enemy already. And some enemies survive this weapon when they shouldn't, or are just immune to it. It also takes some setup and good stage layout for it to be used effectively. But for me, that's not really a bad thing, but it's something necessary for good usage of this weapon. It's good against bosses, but impractical everywhere else. Number 71, Scorch Wheel. This weapon creates a wheel of fire that's sent forward. It will roll on the ground until it hits an enemy or wall, and it will fall if it's used in the air. Holding the shoot button will keep it around you for 2 seconds before being sent forward, so it can act as a shield for a little bit. This weapon's weakened in the water, becoming a short range attack. It can burn the trees in Slash Man stage, some of the ice in Freeze Man stage, and it can let you light the candles in Shade Man stage. stage. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses, before needing to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Burst Man and Slash Man. It's a secondary weakness of Freeze Man, both base fights. In the first phase of Wily Machine 7, free bosses take 1 damage to it, 7 are immune to it. This weapon does good damage, being able to one-shot most normal enemies. The Scorch Wheel having a fast speed and rolling across the ground is good, but it's pretty mediocre in the air, as you aren't hitting much above you due to the falling of the Scorch Wheel. Being able to hold it can serve as an okay shield, but it works just like the Leaf Shield in that case, except it won't cover your entire body. And while the environmental uses are very cool, not working in the water does hurt, even if not many stages are in water. It's an okay weapon that has good damage and environmental uses, and to an extent, it can be good as a ground crawler, but it's mediocre in the air and can't be used too well as a shield, so overall, this weapon does a lot of things, a few good, but a lot bad, which puts it here. Number 70, Wild Coil. This weapon sends out 2 springs, 1 on each side. They will bounce until they hit an enemy or after some time. You can charge this weapon, and if you do, the springs will jump higher and do more damage. To make them go even higher in the air, hold up before releasing it. To make them stay to the ground, hold down before releasing it. The uncharged version spends 1 weapon energy, and the charged version spends 2. Up to 4 of them could be on screen at a time. This weapon is the weakness of Shade Man, Gammarizer, and the Wily Capsule. It's a secondary weakness of both base fights. 6 bosses take 1 damage from it, 5 are immune to it. The damage is low with the uncharged version, and it's okay with the charged version. Charging upward is good against enemies above you, and it can cover enemies from in front of you and behind you. It's pretty awkward to use, and since the damage isn't great in both versions, it may take a while to kill some enemies and mini bosses. It is strong against bosses thanks to its charged version, but at best, it's not too great. Number 69, Ice Slasher. This weapon shoots an ice projectile forward, and it passes through most obstacles. Only 1 Ice Slasher can be on screen at a time. It doesn't do damage to enemies, but whatever enemies it does hit, they will be stunned for about 6 seconds. It can also freeze these fire pillars. It's the weakness of Fireman. It can hit the first phase of Wily Machine 1, and every other boss is immune to it. Unlike the Spark Shock, the enemies will still be frozen if you switch weapons, and you can switch weapons while using it. The stunning of the Ice Slasher can be a good or bad thing depending on what enemy there is and what position they're in, but usually it's a good thing. It can be really good for dealing with annoying enemies, but that's about it. It's situational, so it's mostly used to either dodge enemies or make it easier to kill them. While as a general weapon, it's not great, it's very good for annoying sections in support, so it closes off this tier. C tier weapons are just average. They aren't bad or good, they're just pretty alright, and nothing too special. They can have big advantages, but big disadvantages, or just mediocre all around. This tier has 9 weapons, which is still a good amount, but things only go up from here. Number 68, Napalm Bomb. This weapon shoots a bomb in front of you. The bomb will then move a short distance before bouncing on the ground for some time, and it will change direction if it bounces off a wall. Up to 3 napalm bombs can be on screen at a time. The napalm bomb will fall down if it's in the air. The bomb will explode in 2 ways, either when it kills an enemy, so it doesn't explode whenever it hits an enemy, only when it kills them, or after 3 seconds of not hitting anything. This weapon is the weakness of Stone Man, and a secondary weakness of Darkman 2. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. This weapon does the most damage out of any special weapon in the game. Since the weapon is very spammable, due to the amount of them on screen, especially up close, you can kill tanky enemies very fast. The range of this weapon on the ground is okay, but it's really hard to use against enemies in the air, as they'll only get hit by it if you're really close to them due to the weapon falling quickly. The falling can be good against enemies below you, which helps you play safe. The explosion itself has an okay range, hitting most enemies in that range. This is a mediocre weapon. It's one of the better ones in Mega Man 5, but it's not great in the slightest. Number 67, Chill Spike. This weapon shoots a freezing gel a short distance away from you, which can be extended if you're in the air. If the gel hits an enemy, they do minuscule damage for each Chill Spike thrown, but the enemies will be frozen and unable to move, and some usually invincible enemies are affected by this. When it hits the ground or a wall, icicles form where it landed, doing heavy damage to anything that lands on them. The enemies it freezes will still be frozen if you switch weapons, and they are frozen for 4 seconds. They can also freeze the trucks in Nitro Man stage until either either enough time has passed or another truck hits them. This weapon is the weakness of Nitro Man, Weapons Archive Slash Man, and Wily Capsule. Every other boss takes 1 damage, and the Mega Man killers are immune to it. This weapon is a better ice slasher. While it doesn't shoot straight, and it doesn't freeze enemies for as long, this weapon damages enemies, regardless of if it froze an enemy or they stepped on the spikes, but the damage is either the lowest in the game or decent. The freezing can be good for stopping annoying enemies before they become annoying, or let you get through a section without worry. The short distance does mean a chill spike is pretty bad against air enemies for the most part, and it can be very risky to use against certain enemies that are close to you. This weapon is like the ice slasher. It's not a situational, and like it, you'll be using it to freeze enemies before finishing them off, or to get an annoying enemy out of the way. It's still usable, it's just more complex. Number 66, Blizzard Attack. This weapon shoots 4 snowflakes in front of you, but they start slightly behind you. 2 go forward, 1 goes diagonally upward, 1 goes diagonally downward. Because of this, the farther the snowflakes go, the farther away they will be from each other. This weapon uses free weapon energy per use, for a total of 10 uses before having to refill. The Blizzard Attack will one-shot fire enemies in brain breaks, being these enemies, and it can kill these enemies that are usually invincible. This weapon is the weakness of Plant Man, Matongar Z, and a secondary weakness of Rounder 2. This weapon can be used in a lot of ways, either as a big damage dealer up close, or an enemy sniper from far away. It does decent damage, not great damage, but it's good enough to get most enemies easily. The really bad thing about this weapon is the ammo cost, as you'll run out of energy pretty quickly. Even with that big flaw, it's an alright weapon that can be used when there's a lot of weak enemies you want to get, or if you want to hit one several times in the same attack. Number 65, Commando Bomb. This weapon fires a missile that travels in a straight path. When you fire it, you can turn it up or down, and after that, you can turn it left or right, so you can turn the bomb 2 times. The bomb can hit enemies, but when it hits a surface, it produces 2 large blasts that will spread in the horizontal or vertical directions of the surface. The blast can break through certain walls, which will usually give you items. This weapon uses free weapon energy per use, for a total of 9 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Blade Man, Weapons Archive Frost Man, and Crab Puncher. It's a secondary weakness of Pump Man, Nitro Man, and Weapons Archive Slash Man, with only the blast doing more damage. Every other boss it can hit takes 1 damage, but the Wily Capsule and the Mega Man killers are immune to it. The missile itself does bad damage, while the blast do great damage. The Commando Bomb is good for targeting enemies that stick to walls, and you can kill them without having to deal with them. The Commando Bomb is also good against some mini-bosses, if you can get the blast close enough. Commando Bomb's main problem is that in order to use it effectively, you have to be stuck when using it, as moving accidentally can make you miss your target. While the Commando Bomb does hit a lot of bosses for at least 2 damage, you have to be so active, only the ones that have it as their main weakness are worth using this on. Moving enemies can be a nightmare to hit as well, assuming they aren't limited to just one certain area. This weapon can be good when used well, but you'll have to slow yourself down every time you want to use it effectively, which sadly brings it down here. Number 64, Air Shooter. This weapon throws 3 tornadoes that rise upward, spreading out the further they go. The damage of this weapon depends on how many tornadoes hit an enemy or boss, and they can be hit twice in a row by tornadoes. If a tornado kills an enemy, it will pierce through them. If an enemy or boss is immune to it, whatever tornadoes hit that enemy or boss will disappear. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. This weapon is Crashman's weakness, and a secondary weakness on Woodman, Quickman, Heatman, and Wily Machine 2 second phase. Since 1 damage is dealt per tornado, you can do massive damage if all 3 of them hit. Every other boss is immune to it, with it healing the alien. The damage of this weapon is good, especially if all tornadoes hit. Individual tornado damage isn't too crazy though. The overall range of the air shooter is big, and the spread of the tornadoes can be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. Ammo is an issue. You only get to use it so much before you run out, and it runs out fast if you use it throughout a stage. The problem with this weapon, and why it's not higher, is because it deals on so many enemies and bosses. Other than that, it's an okay weapon. Number 63, Danger Wrap. This weapon will shoot a bomb inside a bubble that is shot forward and rises upward. If you shoot this weapon while moving, it travels a further distance. If you hold up, the bomb will be shot closer to you, and if you hold down while on the ground, the bomb itself is placed, acting as a mine. Up to 3 of these can be placed at a time, and they explode after 3 seconds. If the bomb hits certain enemies, those enemies will be trapped. You can move the bubble by touching it, which will move the enemy inside as well, and if the bubble hits a different enemy, it will explode and do big damage to both of them, including any enemies close to the explosion. If the bubble doesn't hit an enemy, it explodes by itself after 4 seconds, or when it hits a surface. Certain enemies can't be trapped in a bubble, and hitting them just causes an explosion. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Cloudman, Mash, and Gammarizer. You have to push the smaller turtles into it. It's a secondary weakness of both base fights. 5 bosses take 1 damage from it, 6 are immune to it. This weapon does either mediocre or great damage depending on the version, and the explosion can kill a lot of enemies. Being able to change its range, trap enemies, or just place the bomb adds a lot of depth to this weapon, and the bomb only version is good against grounded enemies. No matter what though, its range is always pretty lackluster, unless certain enemies get trapped in it, and the ammo will be used up fast if you aren't mindful. All of this makes the danger wrap okay, but it'll more than likely be situational. Number 62, Top Spin. To use it, you must be in the air. You can do a spin that will hit enemies if you touch them. If you kill them in one hit, you will be pushed back a bit. Top Spin uses 1 weapon energy when it hits an enemy, so using it without hitting anything won't do anything to your weapon energy. If you hit an enemy that is immune to Top Spin, it will still use energy, and enemies that don't instantly die to it are immune to it. Top Spin can hurt you if you use it, like on explosive enemies, or enemies that don't die to it. You know that thing that can happen where your weapon energy just disappears? This is caused by using the Top Spin either on an enemy that's immune to it, or a boss. Both cases happen if you're in iframes after getting hit. The more direct contact you have with that immune enemy or boss, the more weapon energy you use up. It's the weakness of Shadow Man, Doc Heat, Kamegoro Maker, Holograph Mega Man, and the second phase of Gamma. It's a secondary weakness of Gemini Man, Top Man, Doc Crash, and Doc Wood. Holograph Mega Man and the second phase of Gamma are especially weak to it, as they have no invincibility frames. 8 bosses take 1 damage from it, the rest are immune to it. The damage is decent enough, it can one-shot every enemy you expect it to. It also has a very good record against bosses, even being able to insta-kill some of them, with proper timing and placement. As I mentioned earlier, enemies and bosses that are immune to it can cause the weapon bar to disappear if you use it wrong, which is very bad. The range itself isn't great, but that's due to how the weapon works. For all of these reasons, this weapon is both so terrible and so overpowered, so putting it right here was the best compromise. Number 61, Skull Barrier. This weapon spawns a shield with skulls around you. You can jump, move around, and slide while keeping the shield up. The Skull Barrier disappears when it hits an enemy, or when a projectile hits it. If it hits a projectile, it disappears. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses, before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Dive Man, and a secondary weakness of Bright Man. 7 bosses take 1 damage from this weapon, and 9 are immune to it. Being able to shield from projectiles is useful in annoying areas, and can act as an instant kill zone against weak enemies. Its uses are pretty situational, as it does low damage, has low ammo, and it disappearing can be really annoying. So the Skull Barrier gets used most often, in parts of stages where there are weak enemies or projectiles. In those cases it does well. It's a situational weapon, but really good when used right, which is why it's here on this list. Number 60, Star Crash. This weapon summons a shield made of stars around you. The Star Crash can absorb a projectile before disappearing, and it can be thrown, but only in the direction you're facing. 2 points of weapon energy are consumed if it's thrown, and 3 are consumed when it hits a projectile, for a total of 14 and 10 uses respectively. This weapon is the weakness of Gravity Man and the Wily Press. It's a secondary weakness of Dark Man 4, and the rest only take 1 damage from it. This weapon does have pretty nice situational uses. In Crystal Man stage, you can ignore the falling crystals, which can let you keep going without risking death. While this weapon takes some of the best aspects from Skull Barrier and Leaf Shield, which are being able to freely move while the shield is active, and being able to throw it, this weapon spends too much energy to be used too often, and it does low damage, which doesn't help its energy problem in the slightest. It's not a bad weapon, it's a better Skull Barrier, it just has the same issues, and that closes off the C tier. B tier has the most amount of special weapons out of any tier here, and this is where the weapons start getting good. These ones may have a flaw or two, but their uses and advantages can help make up for that. This tier is by far the biggest on the list, having 33 weapons in it, which is not only 3 times the amount of D tier, it's a bit more than double the amount of A tier, so we'll be here for a while. I think this is the tier special weapons should be at, as they're good, but not amazing or broken like A and S tier will be. Number 59, Hornet Chaser. This weapon summons hornet drones that will home in on enemies. If they kill an enemy, they pierce through it. Up to 3 of them can be on screen at a time. The hornets can also pick up items like life energy, weapon ammo, 1-ups, and bolts. They cannot pick up E and M tanks though. This weapon is the weakness of Splash Woman, a secondary weakness of Mega Mech Shark, and every other boss it can hit takes 1 damage from it, but the homing properties are helpful too. Since this weapon homes on enemies, it can get them from anywhere on screen, and being able to pick up items is very helpful, since you can keep yourself, in this weapon, alive for longer if things go well for you. The Hornets prioritizing enemies over items can be good or bad depending on how you look at it, but I'd say it's mostly helpful. The damage of this weapon is very low, so using it for combat isn't a great idea. This weapon is good against the mini-boss in Jewel Man stage, as the Hornets will go after it when it hides in the rocks, making it instantly fall to the ground, but it doesn't do good damage, so you'll have to use something else. This weapon is good if you want to kill annoying enemies, go through annoying sections easier, or just have a simpler time playing the game, but you won't be able to go crazy with this weapon due to the low damage. Number 58, Homing Sniper. This weapon shoots a missile in front of you that homes in on enemies. Up to 5 of them could be on screen at a time. This weapon can also be charged to home in on several enemies at once, but 1 point of ammo is spent for every enemy it targets initially. This weapon is the weakness of Yakodargo in Astro Man. It's the secondary weakness of Cut Man. 8 bosses take 1 damage from it, 6 are immune to it. This weapon does low damage, but the homing and speed of it help make up for that somewhat. This weapon will specifically home in on the weak points of shielded enemies, so you'll either have to go to the weak point itself, or just keep using the homing sniper. The charged version can be good for hitting enemies, but it'll only be 1 missile per enemy it targets, so sometimes the normal version might be better. Like the Hornet Chaser, it's also very simple to use. This weapon is bad against bosses, since it's only worth using against a few of them. This weapon is alright, but it's just a simpler Mega Buster. Number 57, Water Shield. This weapon will spawn 8 rotating droplets of water around you. You can move around while the shield is active, and the shield can absorb projectiles, losing 1 droplet for every projectile absorbed. Projectiles can hit you if the shield is up, especially if you lose a lot of droplets. If the shield gets near an enemy, they do damage for every droplet that's still left, and it can disarm shields. If you press the shoot button while the shield's still up, the water droplets will be hurled at a fast speed, and they will spiral outward. This weapon consumes 4 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 7 uses before needing to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Solar Man, Weapons Archive Flame Man, in the second phase of Wily Machine 10. Wily Capsule and the Mega Man killers are immune to it, and every other boss takes 1 damage from it. The damage is low with individual droplets, but high with all or most of them. Absorbing projectiles is always helpful for a shield, and hurling the droplets can get enemies far away, albeit only 1 or 2 will usually hit. However, the ammo cost is really high, so you can only use this weapon so many times, and the droplets being able to disappear doesn't help. It's still a good shield though, just one of the weirdest ones in the series. Number 56, Black Hole Bomb. This weapon fires a small orb that can be controlled by inputting up or down. You can detonate the black hole by pressing the shoot button again. It detonates for about 4 seconds, and it pulls small enemies and projectiles near it, even ones that are invulnerable, and it can also absorb most boss projectiles. Enemies that are too large will take 4 points of damage, and can get hit again if they get back into the black hole's area. You can spam this weapon by pausing and unpausing after every detonation. This weapon consumes 4 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Jewel Man, Twin Devil, and a secondary weakness of Mega Mech Shark. This weapon does very good damage, and being able to suck up enemies for a while can be useful for annoying enemies and their spawn points. Sucking up projectiles is also very helpful. While against bosses it's not as useful, but it's still useful for staying safe. The ammo cost is high, and the range isn't exactly great, you just have to be smart with it to get its true power. Number 55, Solar Blaze. This weapon launches a fire projectile that splits apart and launches 2 fire waves, 1 on each side. It splits apart after 2 seconds, or when it hits an enemy or a hittable surface, like these ice blocks. The fire waves can pierce through shields, and hit several enemies at the same time. This weapon uses 2 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 14 uses before needing to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Chill Man, Weapons Archive Rain Man, and Wily Machine 10 Phase 1. Wily Capsule and the Mega Man killers are immune to it, and every other boss takes 1 damage from it. This weapon's damage, while not the highest in the game, it's still good, and it can be very fast if used properly. The piercing can hit several enemies, and the waves going on both sides can hit even more of them. The ammo cost is somewhat high, so you need to manage your uses of it well, and if this weapon doesn't hit an enemy or hittable surface, the amount of time this weapon takes to split can be detrimental. The Solar Blaze is my favorite weapon in this game, and while not the best weapon in the game, it's one of the better ones. Number 54, Rolling Cutter. This weapon sends a pair of scissor blades. It travels a short distance in a teardrop-shaped pattern, and it goes back to you like a boomerang. This weapon is the weakness of Elect Man, it's a secondary weakness of Iceman, Bomb Man, Fireman, Yellow Devil, and CWU-1OP. It does 1 damage to every other boss. It does rapid damage on contact, but depending on the enemy, it can take a while for them to die by it, so don't use it on shielded enemies, but it will one-shot almost every other enemy. Rolling Cutters can destroy Gabyals, which are pretty annoying, and if something doesn't die to the Rolling Cutter when you throw it, it can die by the boomerang-like return. However, it has short range. Take some time before you can use it again, as you can only throw 1 at a time, and it takes about 2 seconds to go back to you, and if you throw it on the ground, you have to stay in place for a bit. It's a good weapon, it just has some clear issues. Number 53, Windstorm. This weapon shoots out a tornado that will be shot forward for a certain distance. The distance the Windstorm is shot forward depends on your height in the air, but it won't be extended by much. Up to 3 tornadoes can be on screen at a time. When they kill most non-mini-boss enemies, they're sent flying into the air. This does mean they won't drop anything though. This weapon is the weakness of Flame Man and Tank-CS2. This weapon is the secondary weakness of Radar 2, and every other boss takes 1 damage from it. This weapon's pretty decent, it does good enough damage, and can reach enemies pretty fast. The big problems are the angle of this weapon making it difficult to hit some air enemies, or anything above you really, and since the enemies will be sent flying off screen, they don't drop weapon energy or health. But for being a slightly stronger gravity hold turned into a projectile weapon instead of a screen nuke, it's pretty good. Number 52, Thunderclaw. This weapon launches a beam of electricity. It will extend to about half the screen's length before retracting. If an enemy dies to it, it will pierce through them. It's able to swing from hooks, it can disable these fiends in Grenade Man stage, and it can activate the levers in Sword Man stage. This weapon is the weakness of Grenade Man in the Green Devil. It's a secondary weakness of Yakodargo, Cut Man, Woodman, and Bilking. 10 bosses take 1 damage from it, only 1 is immune to it. Not only is the swinging part of it intended in several sections in the game, it also has decent range and damage, although it isn't as high as some other weapons in this game. However, it can struggle against enemies above it or low enough to dodge it without worry. It's still a good weapon even with that though. Number 51, Crystal Eye. This weapon shoots a crystal orb. If it hits a wall or surface, it splits into 3 smaller crystals. These are able to bounce off surfaces and walls for some time. Only 1 crystal eye can be used at a time, including the smaller version. This weapon is the weakness of Napalm Man, Big Pets, and it's one of the weaknesses for Dark Man 2. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. The damage on this weapon is pretty good, and the smaller crystals do the same damage. The big one has a better time hitting small enemies, and the smaller ones are likely to hit more fans on screen if there are any walls around. While it's not as versatile as the gyro attack, this weapon is still useful in a good amount of the game. Number 50, Ice Wave. This weapon fires a falling icicle. If it hits the ground, ice will flow along the floor until it goes off screen, goes down a wall with a bottomless pit, or after enough time. This weapon can freeze certain enemies and the lava pillars in Swordman stage. This weapon is the weakness of Tengu Man. It's the secondary weakness of Yakodargo, Swordman, Cutman, and Woodman. 9 bosses take 1 damage from it, 3 are immune to it. This weapon does pretty good damage, being able to kill tanky enemies in 1 to 2 hits, and it can one-shot almost everything else. It's very fast as well, so it'll get to those enemies quickly, making it good against enemies on the ground or on walls. However, it's very bad against air enemies that aren't near walls, since you only have the initial icicle to work with, which has short range and immediately falls down. Regardless, it's a decent weapon, doing a good job at being the game's ground crawler. Number 49, Gemini Laser. This weapon shoots a laser directly forward. If it hits a wall, it bounces off that wall until it hits an enemy, or after enough time. You cannot switch weapons as long as the Gemini Laser is on screen. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Needleman, Doc Quick, and Doc Flash. It's a secondary weakness of Gemini Man, Magnet Man, and Doc Air. 11 bosses take 1 damage from it, and the rest are immune to it. The Gemini Laser does good damage on enemies it can hit, and the wall bouncing can help with different angles. It has good range, especially with the wall bouncing. However, it is hard to properly use, and if you use it wrong, you'll be stuck with it for some time, and you only have so much ammo. All of that combines to make a decent weapon weapon that is great when used well, but struggles if it isn't. Number 48, Rebound Striker. This weapon throws a ball. You can throw it in every cardinal direction except up and down. The ball can bounce off surfaces up to 5 times before disappearing, getting faster and stronger with each bounce. This weapon uses 2 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. Up to 2 Rebound Strikers can be on screen at a time. This weapon is the weakness of Sheep Man, Weapons Archive Napalm Man, and Block Devil. Wily Capsule and the Mega Man killers are immune to it, and every other boss takes 1 damage from it. This weapon can do alright to some of the highest damage in the game, and bouncing off walls makes it be able to get certain enemies, and since you can throw it at so many angles, it's very versatile. However, you can only use it so much, and this weapon isn't great in most closed situations, because although you can easily do great damage, you can just as easily waste a Rebound Striker if it bounces too much, too fast. It's a good and dangerous weapon, but you have to be careful while using it. Number 47, Rain Flush. This weapon fires a capsule into the sky, which creates a rainstorm of acid covering the entire screen. The capsule traveling to the top of the screen, and the delay of the rainstorm makes this weapon take anywhere from half a second to 1.5 seconds, depending on how high you were when you used it. The rainstorm will be on screen for about a second. It will deal damage to everything that it can hit, and it can pierce through enemy and boss shields. This weapon uses 4 weapon energy per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Bright Man, but shoot an uncharged shot before using it. It's the secondary weakness of Pharaoh Man and Skull Man. It can also hit Drill Man when he's underground, and Skull Man when he has the skull barrier up. 6 bosses take 1 damage from it, and 8 are immune to it. The damage isn't amazing, but this weapon is always able to one-shot all weak enemies on screen, and a tiny amount of the stronger ones. It's a screen nuke, so of course the range is good. While you don't get too many uses of it, only having 7, there's also a slight delay between shooting the weapon and it working, and the damage isn't amazing. This weapon's really good for killing all weak enemies on screen, and doing damage to everything. Number 46, Centaur Flash. This weapon does damage to every enemy on screen. This weapon uses 4 weapon energy per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Windman, and every other boss is immune to it. Since the weapon does good damage, you can kill most enemies quickly, although mini bosses are kinda weird in that regard. The damage alone makes it way better than the gravity hold, as you can actually kill tanky enemies. It's not as effective on bosses as the gravity hold, but you weren't using it for bosses in the first place. Due to only having 7 uses, it's still somewhat situational, but not as situational as the gravity hold, since enemies can drop weapon energy. Also, unlike the Rain Flush, it does more damage and has no initial delay. However, a good amount of screen nukes are still better than it, so it's nowhere near the best one in the series. Number 45, Gyro Attack. This weapon throws a propeller-shaped cutter in front of you. You can change its direction to go up or down if you input those directions, but you can only do it once. This weapon is the weakness of Crystal Man, Circling Q9, and one of the weaknesses of Dark Man 3. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. It does good damage on enemies, and being able to aim up or down helps get enemies most other weapons can't. Being able to damage every boss, even with 1 damage, helps as well. Manually being able to aim up or down can be good or bad depending on how you look at it, as you can adapt to an enemy's movement, but like the Commando Bomb, you can accidentally input directions. Overall, this weapon's pretty decent, by far the best in Mega Man 5. Number 44, Tornado Blow. This weapon has tornadoes affect the whole screen, sending most enemies off screen. The wind can also allow you to jump higher, which is intended for Wily Stage 1, and it's a good movement option. This weapon consumes 7 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 4 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Magma Man and Mega Mech Shark, especially its second phase. Every other boss it can hit takes 1 damage from it. This weapon does pretty good damage. It can help get dangerous or annoying enemies killed immediately, and the hype boost makes platforming easier. The ammo cost is bad though, as you only get to use it 4 times, and the weapon blowing enemies off screen does make getting weapon energy from them impossible. This weapon is both the best and worst screen nuke, adds its own twist on it, and makes it overall pretty effective. Just it won't be used in certain situations. Just its uses won't be common. Number 43, Astro Crush. This weapon summons a bunch of meteors that will hit all enemies on screen. You will be locked in place and invincible for its duration, which is about 2 seconds. It can destroy the Ice Floor and Frostman stage, and the Ceiling and Aquaman stage. This weapon is the weakness of Yago Dargo, since it kills it instantly, Aquaman, Cutman, Bill Kane, and Wally Machine 8's first phase. It's also one of the weaknesses of Woodman, and it does good damage against base. Every other boss is immune to it. This weapon does amazing damage, being able to insta-kill basically every enemy on screen, and it's a mini-boss killer. Bosses are a bit weird, but the ones Astral Crush can hit, it usually does great damage to them. The invincibility can be great as well, since it can be a get out of jail free card. The aerial stall isn't as useful, but it helps in the snowboarding sections. It can backfire in both that and the shoot 'em up sections if you mess up the timing. The ammo cost is really bad, but this weapon is still good even with that. Number 42, Hard Knuckle. This weapon shoots the Hard Knuckle forward, with some delay before it starts moving. The Hard Knuckle stalls you in the air for a bit, and it can be influenced up or down if you move it up or down. It can also break these blocks, which all other weapons can't break. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Top Man, Doc Crash, Yellow Devil, Kamegoro Maker, and both phases of Wally Machine Free. This weapon is the secondary weakness of Magnet Man, Snake Man, Gemini Man, Spark Man, Shadow Man, Hard Man, Doc Metal, Doc Wood, Doc Air, Doc Bubble, Doc Heat, Holograph Mega Man, and the first phase of Gamma. I got that first try, let's go! It does 1 damage to only Doc Quick, and every other boss is immune to it. It's very good against bosses, due to its good numbers against a bunch of them. The damage of this weapon is really high, being able to kill almost every enemy in 1 hit, with some strange exceptions. Killing enemies when they're close to you can help reduce the slowness of it slightly, and the vertical influence is useful. The ammo is low, so you can't use it too often. The starting delay and the speed of it can be annoying, but it's very strong if you use it right. Number 41, Scramble Thunder. Both versions of it shoot a sphere of electricity. After it touches a surface, it can travel along that surface, and I mean all of it. It can also be aimed upward. Up to 3 or 4 of these could be on screen at a time. The normal version explodes after it hits an enemy, releasing an electric field that lasts for a short time, damaging enemies that contact it. The Power Gear version fires a larger sphere. It deals more damage and pierces through enemies and shields, regardless of if they die to it or not. You can hit an enemy twice with it if they got hit by the initial sphere, and then the electricity that travels surfaces. Both versions can light up the darkness in Torchman stage for some time. The normal version of this weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. The Power Gear version uses 3 weapon energy per use, for a total of 10 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Tundra Man. It's a secondary weakness of the second phase of Wally Machine 11, and it can do 2 damage to every Robot Master other than Fuse and Bounce Man, but only via the explosion of the sphere normally, or when the Power Gear version travels on a surface. The aforementioned Robot Masters and every other boss take only 1 damage from all variants of this weapon. The damage of this weapon is alright, nothing too crazy. It's still decent enough to get most enemies in 2 to 3 hits. The explosion of the normal version is good for getting a bunch of enemies that are in a certain area, and the Power Gear version being able to pierce through enemies and shields makes it a great option if there's a bunch of enemies close to each other, or if there's a long section of a ground or surface. Being able to aim it up helps as well, since it kills enemies you can't get with a buster. Since it's a ground crawler that's actually good against air enemies, ammo is an issue, not as big as some other weapons in this game, but it's still there, which makes it not a weapon that can be used too often. Its mini-boss and boss records aren't too great. It only hits 2 bosses for more than 2 damage. Mini-bosses depend if the arena for the mini-boss has walls in every direction, bonus points if it has multiple targets. This does mean it's only worth using on a few mini-bosses, since most of them don't have these 2 things you're looking for when you want to use the Scramble Thunder against them. It's still a good weapon though, one of my personal favorites in this game, and as Mega Man 11 is the last game to debut on the list, you know it's gonna be good. Number 40, Dive Missile. This weapon shoots a missile. The missile homes onto the closest enemy, no matter where they are, as long as they're on screen. It's the weakness of Drill Man, 8 bosses take 1 damage from it, and 8 are immune to it. The missile does decent damage. It can get enemies at angles no other weapon in the game can. The homing can be weird, as if you time it wrong, or the homing just doesn't cooperate, it can spiral over and over again, and be very weird before hitting the enemy. This happens most often on flying enemies. It can also home in on projectiles that can't be damaged, which is both a good and bad thing, although it is a weak option against bosses, and the homing can be an issue if you use it in the wrong situation. It's more than usable as a homing weapon. Number 39, Wheel Cutter. This weapon launches a spinning blade that follows the landscape, falling down when the ground stops, and climbing up walls if needed. If you hold down the shoot button, the wheel cutter remains in your hand, and it can be used to do damage up close. If you're close enough enough to a wall while doing this, you can quickly scale the wall. Up to 3 of them can be on screen at a time. This weapon is the weakness of Commando Man, Weapons Archive Elect Man, and Weapons Archive Gemini Man. It's a secondary weakness of Strike Man and Weapons Archive Wood Man. Every other boss takes 1 damage, except for the Mega Man killers and Wily Capsule, who are immune to it. This weapon does pretty good damage. Scaling up walls is great for both going fast and saving yourself in dire situations. Because the wheel cutters will adapt to the terrain of the stages, it can be a very safe weapon to use, and using it as a melee weapon is useful for scaling walls and pretty funny for combat. The wheel cutter is bad against enemies in the air, assuming there are no walls to work with, and it can be risky to use it up close if you don't know what you're doing. While its flaws hold it back from A tier and even the highest spots in B tier, what it does give you is pretty good. Number 38, Tornado Hold. This weapon drops a fan on the ground. If the fan does hit the ground, a tornado is created that will rapidly damage anything in its area, which covers that part of the screen for about 2 seconds, although ceilings will limit its vertical range, and it does have a point where it stops rising up. It will also break any weak projectiles that go to it. You can use it to increase your vertical height, as you'll be rising upward inside it, and certain objects, like the spiked balls in Aquaman stage. This weapon is the weakness of Clown Man, it's a secondary weakness of Yago Dargo, and Cut Man. 14 bosses take 1 damage from its fan part, 5 are immune to its tornado. This weapon does pretty good damage against enemies and mini bosses that it can hit if they stay in its range for a while, and since it can reach the top of the screen, and since its vertical range is really big, it's good against every enemy in that range. And while it doesn't go too far horizontally, it makes the vertical rising the tornado gives you a lot more reasonable to use, since it's close, and the barrier the tornado gives can be good for defense. However, you do need to be close to most enemies if you want to hit them. It's still a good weapon even with the short horizontal range, and it helps a lot throughout the game. Number 37, Water Balloon. This weapon shoots a sphere of water in a low arc. There is no limit to how many of them can be on screen, so you can shoot it rapidly, or 1 at a time. Anything's fair game as long as you have ammo. This weapon is the weakness of Swordman, and this weapon is the secondary weakness of Yago Dargo, Cupman, and Wily Machine 8's first phase. And it can also stop its laser. 9 bosses take 1 damage from it, 4 are immune to it. This weapon does lower damage than most, but it's still good, and because you can spam it, you won't notice it as often. It also has good range and speed, so it's a reliable option throughout the game. This is another weapon which is just a different Mega Buster, so I don't have much else to say. Number 36, Tundra Storm. The normal version of it shoots out a column of cold air directly above and below you. The Powered Gear version has this affect the entire screen, turning it into a screen nuke. It can freeze the firewalls and Torchman stage for some time. The normal version uses 4 weapon energy per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill, while the Power Gear version uses 7 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 4 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Torchman. It's a secondary weakness of every Robot Master except Fuse and Tundra Man. The Power Gear version does 2 damage to Yellow Devil Mark III and Mavern, while every other boss, including Fuse Man and Tundra Man, take 1 damage from both versions. The damage of it is great. It one-shots every weak enemy and does good damage to the stronger ones. The range of it is also pretty good. The normal version can cover a column with some horizontal distance, while the Power Gear version is a screen nuke. It's also good against bosses, not as good as some other weapons in this game, but it's still pretty strong against them. Against mini bosses, it can kill some in 3 hits, or it's an absolute tragedy against them. This one has the worst ammo problem out of any of them, as you can only use it 7 or 4 times. This weapon's good, and being the second weapon covered from Mega Man 11, that alone should be enough to tell you how crazy this game's gonna get higher up on the list. Number 35, Blazing Torch. Both versions of this weapon launch a ball of fire diagonally up into the air. It crashes back down as a projectile in the shape of a dragon, which goes diagonally down. It pierces through enemies and passes through walls and surfaces. The normal version just sends out 1, but the Power Gear version sends out 3, all of them going diagonally down, but at different angles. It can destroy these exploding crates in Blast Man stage and Wily stage 2. The normal version uses 2 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill, while the Power Gear version uses 5 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 6 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Blast Man. It's a secondary weakness for every Robot Master except Torchman, and it can do 2 damage to Yellow Devil Mark III if you use the Power Gear. I do want to mention it's really good against Blockman's second phase, due to it having no invincibility frames. Every other boss including Torchman takes 1 damage from it, including Yellow Devil if you use the normal version. This weapon's damage is good, nowhere near something like the Chain Blast, but it's still good. It can of course be increased with the Power Gear, but if you hit the enemy with with the initial ball, you'll do even more damage, some of the highest in the game. It can reliably one-shot weaker enemies and some stronger ones, but of course the strongest ones won't go down in a single hit. This weapon can hit several enemies due to its pattern. The Power Gear version especially can hit a bunch of them. It can reliably reach the enemy you're targeting, and in Power Gear, one of them consistently gets to the other side of the screen. It has one of the better records against bosses, but it's nowhere near the best. It's the worst weapon in terms of against mini-bosses. It doesn't even kill Blastman's mini-boss the fastest out of the weapons. I'm not saying it's bad, not at all, but it doesn't have a mini-boss where it's super effective. This weapon has a big ammo problem, not as big as Tundra Storm, but it's absolutely there, so you don't get to use it too much before you have to refill. It's one of the weaker weapons in 11, but it's still very strong. Number 34, Search Snake. This weapon shoots a snake that travels along the ground, and it can travel up and down walls. Up to 3 can be on screen at a time. 1 point of weapon energy is consumed every other use, or infinite if you weapon swap before every other use. This weapon is the weakness of Gemini Man, Doc Wood, Kamegoro Maker, Holograph Mega Man, Wily Machine Free, and Gamma Phase 2. It's a secondary weakness of Snake Man and Doc Quick. 8 bosses take 1 damage from it, every other boss is immune to it. The damage is decent, and if you have good memorization, shooting the snakes can kill enemies as soon as they spawn. The ammo count's pretty good, one of the better ones in the series in that regard. The range of this weapon is good on the ground, but practically nothing in the air, so enemies in the air are very annoying to deal with. They also deal on a bunch of enemies, so where you can use it is a bit limited. Other than that, it's a decent weapon that's limited by the immunities of enemies, but it's still pretty good. Number 33, Flame Sword. This weapon has you swing a sword made of fire short range away from you. The Flame Sword has different slashes, depending on if you're grounded or airborne. The grounded slash has more horizontal range, the air slash has a little more vertical range. It can erase some projectiles, it can burn these foreign vines in Search Man stage, break these ice blocks in Frost Man stage, and light these fuses in Grenade Man stage. This weapon is the weakness of Search Man in Wood Man. It's a secondary weakness of Tengu Man, Frost Man, Cut Man, Yago Dargo, Bill King, in both phases of Wally Machine 8, and it can stop an attack in its first phase. This weapon does good damage, being able to kill most enemies in 1 to 2 hits, although the Granite Slash does a little more damage. It's also very efficient against mini-bosses it can't safely hit, so it's good there, and it's surprisingly great against bosses, due to its numbers being pretty good against a good amount of them. This weapon does have short range though, so you do have to risk contact damage, or even getting near hazards to damage enemies, and this weapon can be a little slow. It's another weapon that's pretty good, it just has some annoying flaws, so make sure to be careful. Number 32, Thunderbolt. This weapon shoots a ball of electricity directly in front of you. This weapon's able to travel through walls, and if it hits an enemy, it splits into 2 smaller electric balls. These will travel up and down respectively. This weapon can activate the power of the machines in Junkman stage, it can temporarily light the dark area in Shademan stage, and in Cloudman stage, if you use it on these platforms, they become damaging platforms. This weapon is the weakness of Junkman, both base fights, and the first phase of Wily Machine 7. It's the secondary weakness of Cloudman in MASH. 3 bosses take 1 damage from this weapon, 7 are immune to it. 3 of them have special interactions. Spring Man becomes a magnet, which slowly pulls you to him. Turbo Man becomes invincible for a few seconds, and he constantly tries to ram into you for that time. The Wily Capsule will be electrocuted, and so it won't shoot the normal orbs, although it still shoots the Thunder Orbs on the ground. The Thunderbolt does alright damage. It can kill most, if not every weak enemy in 1 hit, and the extra electric balls can kill more enemies or do more damage. In Junkman stage, not only is it required to get Rush Jet, but it allows you to access this area, which cheeses a section of the stage without worry, but due to the Thunderbolt struggling somewhat against tankier enemies, and the fact you need more enemies on screen to get those extra electric balls to be useful, makes this a good weapon, but not great like the weapons in A tier will be. Number 31, Rain Boomerang. This weapon will be thrown in front of you with a somewhat short range, coming back to you like a boomerang. You can extend the time it's on screen by moving away from the Rain Boomerang as it's being thrown, and it can hit the same enemy several times if you use it right. This weapon is the weakness of Dustman, Mafraya, Takeo Trash, in the first phase of Wally Machine 4. It's the secondary weakness of Cockroach Twins and Metal Daddy. Only Square Machine is immune to it, and every other boss takes 1 damage from it. It's also one of 2 weapons that can hit the Wily Capsule. The Rain Boomerang does decent damage. It won't kill most tanky enemies in 1 to 2 hits, but it's still pretty good. The Rain Boomerang does have short range, but the Boomerang can hit enemies for more damage on the way back. It's not as strong as other weapons in its game, but it's still pretty good. Number 30, Noise Crush. This weapon fires a sound wave in front of you, which can can bounce off walls. Up to 2 can be on screen at once. If the Noise Crush contacts you while it's still on screen, you will be able to use the charged version, which is larger and does more damage. Only the uncharged version depletes ammo. The charged version doesn't deplete anything. This weapon is the weakness of Turbo Man, both base fights and Hyananed. 6 bosses take 1 and 2 damage for each version respectively, and 6 are immune to it. Shade Man powers up from this weapon, which makes his fight harder. You can also quick kill Turbo Man and Spring Man if you time your shot right, but only in their initial fight. The damage of both versions are good, and the uncharged version increases that already good damage even more. However, you do need walls, or being good at the sliding trick, in order to use it. It also isn't great against enemies above you, but it's still usable. This weapon's good overall. While the charged version may not be usable in all situations, both versions are great, which leads it to here. Number 29, Concrete Shot. This weapon fires a glob of concrete a short distance away from you, which can be increased depending on your height in the air. When it hits the ground, a wall, or an enemy with low enough health, it turns into a solid block of concrete that breaks after a few seconds. You can stand on these blocks of concrete, but they will break faster. They can harden the magma barriers, making them safe to touch, and disable the laser beams in Wily Stage 4. Enemies that are turned into concrete will not drop any items, and if an enemy doesn't die to it, they take free damage for each concrete shot. It won't be turned into concrete. This weapon uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Galaxy Man, and it can freeze his black hole bomb before it detonates, the second phase of Wily Machine 9, and a secondary weakness of the Mega Mech Shark. Every boss it can hit takes 1 damage from it. This weapon does great damage, some of the highest in the game, so it's an absolute mini boss killer. Because this weapon can create platforms, like getting to higher heights without rush, scaling up walls, and creating safety platforms, with the short distance helping a lot. However, you don't have too much ammo, and since enemies that die to it don't drop anything, this problem is amplified, and to murder enemies, you need to get close to them. This weapon is a really good option for damage and platforming, just you need to take a risk with it. Number 28, Magnet Missile. This weapon shoots a magnet directly in front of you. It will move up or down to the closest target, even if it's immune to it. Up to 2 magnet missiles can be on screen at once. The magnet missile will only target something once, so if the target avoids it, it will not retarget it or another enemy. If the target can't be harmed, like a Met under their helmet, or Hammer Joes with closed eyes, that target will be skipped. This weapon uses 2 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. It's the weakness of Hard Man, Doc Air, and Doc Metal. It's a secondary weakness of Gemini Man, Magnet Man, Doc Quick, and Wily Machine Freeze second phase. It does 1 damage on 9 bosses, and every other boss is immune to it. The Magnet Missile can hit enemies often and do good damage, but moving in immune targets can be annoying, and it does consume weapon energy quickly. Other than that, it's a solid weapon with flaws you can get around with proper usage. Number 27, Plug Ball. This weapon shoots sparks that travel across the ground. It can climb up and down walls, ceilings, and even the bottom side of platforms. If this weapon's fired in the air, the sparks fall directly down until they hit the ground or a pit. This weapon will disappear if it falls into a pit or after 4 seconds have passed. 1 point of weapon energy is consumed every other use, for a total of 56 ammo, even if you do weapon swap before every other use. This weapon is the weakness of Tornado Man in the final phase of Wily Machine 9. It's a secondary weakness of Mega Mech Shark, and every other boss it can hit takes 1 damage from it. This weapon does good damage, being able to kill most enemies relatively quickly, and it's solid against mini bosses too. The Plug Ball is fast, so it can get to its targets quickly. Its wall climbing allows you to safely damage or activate enemies without having to risk getting attacked yourself. Due to this weapon not being able to do much in the air, since it falls to the ground immediately, it's pretty bad against enemies in the air, especially ones above you, assuming there's no walls near them. This weapon is just a better Search Snake. It even has the same properties and weaknesses of it, however it doesn't have the boss effectiveness for it being faster, dealing on less enemies. It's better than it, so it ends up here on the list, and it finally ends off the B tier. A tier weapons are very good. These weapons can be used in many situations, and they are very efficient. A small flaw may hold them back a bit, but even with that, these are very good, and have reasons to be used, even if there are any S tier weapons in that weapon's respective game. While the weapon count is less than half of B tier, being 16, there's still a lot to cover. Number 26, Yamato Spear. This weapon shoots a small spearhead in front of you. The angle goes slightly up or down. Up to 3 spears could be on screen at a time. They pierce through shields and enemies that die to it. This weapon is the weakness of Nightman in Mechasaurus. It's the secondary weakness of Rounder 2 in Power Piston. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. This weapon is essentially a better Mega Buster, like the Needle Cannon that we'll see later. It does more damage, has a higher speed, and has piercing capabilities, which the Mega Buster doesn't. This weapon is a worse Needle Cannon, as you have 28 instead of 112 ammo, but it's still a pretty good weapon. Number 25, Junk Shield. This weapon summons a shield of junk around you. You can move around while it's active. It can't protect you against some projectiles, but it will protect you from enemies on contact, doing a bunch of damage to them. Some of the junk will be destroyed on impact with an enemy, and the more health an enemy has, the more of it is destroyed. The junk will be thrown in 3 random directions if you shoot again, but this amount does decrease depending on the amount of junk that's still around. This weapon uses free weapon energy per use, for a total of 9 uses before having to refill, since you can't use it with less than free weapon ammo. This weapon is the weakness of Freeze Man, and a secondary weakness of Hyananed. 8 bosses take 1 damage from it, 6 are immune to it. While this is a weak option against bosses, it murders every enemy that comes into contact with it, and some mini bosses get incinerated. The shield covers you entirely, and the junk that is thrown has good range and damage too, even with the angles being a little weird. This weapon does struggle heavily against shielded enemies, as they'll block most, if not all of the junk. While the shield may not be good against almost all bosses or shielded enemies, it's very effective everywhere else, which puts it up here. Number 24, Jewel Satellite. This weapon will summon 4 jewels around you. You can move while the shield is active, and you can throw it, but you can only throw it in the direction you're facing. The Jewel Satellite will not disappear unless it hits something strong enough to survive 1 hit from it, so it can be active for a while. This weapon can also reflect and destroy most projectiles. This weapon only consumes weapon energy when you activate it, and it consumes 4 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Plug Man and Fake Man, and it's a secondary weakness for Jewel Man and Mega Mech Shark's second phase. Every other boss that it can hit takes 1 damage from it. It can also block projectiles that some bosses have. This weapon is widely considered the best shield in the classic Mega Man series, because it can reflect and destroy projectiles, be thrown, and it can kill anything that gets one-shot by it, without disappearing in any of those cases, making it amazing for farming items and bolts. This weapon does have an ammo problem, and its low damage doesn't help. The Jewel Satellite is amazing for getting through segments of stages without worry, and while its damage isn't great, everything else is with this weapon. Number 23, Slash Claw. This weapon creates a crescent-shaped beam of energy at a short range away from you. Despite how the weapon looks, when it hits an enemy, it actually hits them several times, instead of 1 big hit. The damage of it seems to be dependent on how close the enemy is to you. I could be wrong, but I'm not too sure. It can also pierce through shields, but this does also depend on distance. On the ground, you will have to stop moving when using it, but in the air this doesn't apply. This weapon is the weakness of Spring Man, Guts Man G, and Hyananed. It's also the secondary weakness of Junk Man. 8 bosses take 1 damage from it, 4 are immune to it. This weapon does pretty good damage, being able to one-shot most enemies that aren't mini-bosses. It's also very quick, which means you can spam it, and use it efficiently in stages, and it's good against the bosses. Granted, none of them it's effective against are too problematic, but it's still good numbers. The short range of it doesn't help it too much. You can't get enemies from far away, especially if it's risky to do so, and enemies above you are a lost cause if they're high enough. This weapon still manages to be pretty good despite its flaws, so it's a very reliable option. Number 22, Laser Trident. This weapon will shoot a trident. The tridents can pierce through enemies, walls, and most shields. Up to 3 tridents can be on screen at a time. It can destroy these block barriers, the Hardened Magma in Magma Man stage, in Concrete from Concrete Man's Concrete Shot. 1 point of weapon energy is consumed every other use, for a total of 56 ammo, even if you do weapon swap before every other use. This weapon is the weakness of Concrete Man in Mega Mech Shark. It's a secondary weakness of Splash Woman, and every other boss it can hit takes 1 damage from it. This weapon's damage is good, and being able to pierce through many things helps a lot. The amount of ammo is very good, since you can use it as a Mega Buster replacement for a while, and it's very fast. Adding to it, this weapon is another weapon I'd say is just a better Mega Buster, and that's why it's in this spot on the list. On a personal note, it was really hard deciding if this or the needle cannon were better. Number 21, Acid Barrier. Both versions of this weapon will generate a large ball of acid around you, and the shield shrinks over time until it dissipates. You can move around while using it, both have a buster-like shot, and getting damage while the weapon's up immediately dissipates it. The normal version of this weapon will have the shield be able to absorb projectiles, and the buster shoots in a slight arc. The shield itself does not do damage. The Paragear version has these aforementioned feigns, plus the shield doing contact damage, and if it hits one, more acid shots bounce off from the shields, which can do more damage depending on the angle they go at. The shots of this version go farther, but its arc isn't as strong, shooting straighter. The normal version of this weapon uses 4 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. For the Paragear version, 5 weapon ammo is consumed for every use. It consumes 5 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 6 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Impact Man in both phases of Wily Machine 11. For secondary weaknesses, every Robot Master other than Acid Man and Block Man takes 2 damage from it, assuming the Paragear version is used. Acid Man, Block Man, and every other boss takes 1 damage from all versions of it. Both versions of this weapon do good damage, since they have a buster that doesn't consume ammo as long as the shield is up, but the Paragear version especially does great damage, not only due to the better buster, but the shield being able to do contact damage, and the acid that bounces off the shield. Both versions being able to block weak projectiles makes certain sections of stages a lot easier, or even brain dead in some cases. This weapon doesn't have a great record against bosses, or even some mini bosses, but only some. Against the rest, it absolutely murders them. It also has an ammo problem, as you'll spend a lot of ammo really fast if things go wrong, but the amount of time the shield can be up for makes this a lesser problem. For me, this weapon is the best shield weapon in the series, because of how powerful it is, and how easy it makes certain sections of the game. Number 20, Quick Boomerang. This weapon fires a short-range boomerang cutter at high speed, and it goes back to you like a boomerang. 8 uses of this weapon consume 1 point of energy, for a total of 224 uses. Infinite if you weapon swap before the 8th use. If you hold the shoot button, the weapon will be used until you stop holding the button. It's the main weakness of Metal Man, Mecha Dragon, and Guts Dozer, and a secondary weakness against Bubble Man, Air Man, and Heat Man. 4 bosses take 1 damage from it, 6 are immune to it, with one of them healing from it. This weapon's pretty good. It's very fast, it does good damage to enemies, and it has the most ammo out of any special weapon in the series. However, the short range can suck, and some enemies take some time for the quick boomerang to kill. Other than that though, it's a very reliable weapon. Number 19, Block Dropper. The normal version of this weapon spawns 4 heavy blocks near the top of the screen, a short distance away from you. The blocks will be gapped, so they are all a small distance away from each other. The Paragear version spawns 16 blocks, covering the gaps and having columns of blocks. The normal version uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. The Paragear version uses 3 weapon energy per use, for a total of 10 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Acid Man. It's a secondary weakness of Fuse Man, Tundra Man, Torch Man, Impact Man, and Bounce Man. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. The damage of this weapon is alright, and the Paragear version does great damage, albeit in some cases it takes a long time to kill enemies. The range is good, as you can get enemies above and below you, and the Paragear version can act as an area eliminator. Both versions can also kill many enemies at their spawn points. The ammo cost though isn't great, especially with the Paragear version, so some enemies and mini bosses can completely ignore the blocks. Because the blocks spawn a short distance away from you, it does nothing to the enemies that are directly in front of you, so that can be a bit annoying. The weapon's pretty good overall though. It can be very useful in most situations. Number 18, Night Crusher. This weapon throws a spiked ball forward for a certain distance, then in an arc, coming back to you in the process, so it has 2 chances to hit enemies because of it. Up to 2 of them could be on screen at a time. You can move when the ball is returning to extend, shorten, or influence its range when coming back. You can throw the Night Crusher in every cardinal direction other than directly up and down. If the Night Crusher kills certain enemies in 1 hit, it will pierce through them and continue being active. If the weapon is deflected, it will still come back to you and do damage, just at a different angle. It can also hit shielded enemies from below or behind, if you have the right angles and timing. This weapon is the weakness of Centaur Man, and the secondary weakness of Rounder 2, Power Piston, in all phases of Wily Machine 6. Every other boss takes 1 damage damage from it. This weapon does good damage, is extremely versatile, and you can use it in most situations. The piercing can get several enemies, and the boomerang effect can get enemies on the way back. Its range isn't the best, but nothing too crazy. The Night Crush is pretty good. There's not much else I can say about it. Number 17, Bounce Ball. Both versions of this weapon will fire bouncy balls. These can be aimed up or down, and they will ricochet off of enemies and walls a few times before exploding. The normal version fires off 3 balls in front of you, and there can be 6 on screen at a time. The Power Gear version will fire 3 balls in front of you, 3 behind you, and there could be up to 12 off screen at a time. The normal version uses 1 weapon ammo per use. The Power Gear version uses 2 weapon energy per use, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. It can also destroy elect crossers and elect extenders. This weapon is the weakness of Fuse Man, and a secondary weakness of Mauvern, although you'll probably be using this weapon on it more than the pile driver. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. The damage of this weapon is low, but the many times the balls can hit enemies makes up for that if things go right. Because there will be so many of these on screen, you'll be able to hit almost anything on screen. Tilting up or down helps as well. Its ammo is some of the best in the game, with it being the only weapon to have a Power Gear version that spends just 2 weapon energy. The low damage does mean some enemies will take some time to die to it, not too long, but enough time to where something else would have done it faster. Its mini boss and boss record isn't that great either. For mini bosses, the one in Fuse Man stage is the only one that this weapon is great against. All of the others are dependent on how many walls there are. This weapon's also pretty bad against bosses, only doing more than 1 damage to 2 of them. This weapon's pretty good overall, but its flaws do hold it back from being higher up. Number 16, Needle Cannon. This weapon fires needles that go directly forward, with slightly varying heights. Up to 3 needles can be on screen at once. 1 point of weapon energy is consumed every 4th use, for a total of 112 ammo, or infinite if you weapon swap before the 4th use. You can also hold the shoot button to fire without stopping. This weapon is the weakness of Snake Man, Doc Flash, and Doc Wood. It's a secondary weakness to Spark Man, Needle Man, Doc Crash, Doc Bubble, and Doc Heat. 10 bosses take 1 damage from it, every other boss is immune to it. The damage of this weapon is the same or a little more than the Mega Buster, and it's just as spammable. The range is very good, the ammo count is some of the highest in the series, and it has good boss numbers. The only real flaw I have here is that it does a bad job against enemies above or below you, assuming you have no platforms or other ground to work with. There's not much I can say about it other than it being a Mega Buster upgrade. Number 15, Flash Bomb. This weapon throws a bomb that explodes after it hits a surface or enemy. The explosion lasts for 2.5 seconds. It can pierce shields, except for Mets, and anything that's in its area can be hit several times. Up to 2 can be on screen at once. The Flash Bomb can also light up the dark area and destroy the Swollen Sword Man stage, and it can break the Cracked Ice and Frost Man stage. This weapon is the weakness of Frost Man, and one of the weaknesses for Wily Machine 8's second phase. It's the secondary weakness of Yakko Dargo, Astra Man, Grenade Man, and Cut Man. It's also good against the Green Devil, since it can break its coating almost instantly. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. The damage of this weapon is amazing against every enemy, since they'll usually die to it in 1 or 2 bombs, and it's the best weapon against mini bosses when you have no Astro Crush, due to the same reason, and it shoots straight forward, making it the best option generally. This weapon is also one of 2 weapons that can do at least 1 damage to every boss, so you can always use it there. The only bad things I can say about it is that it isn't great in the snowboard and shoot 'em up sections, but that's due to the screen scrolling away from where you shot the bombs. When the screen stays still or scrolls slow, it's great. It also doesn't do a great job against enemies above you, but the explosion does a decent enough job, and that's only if you don't have vertical elevation yourself. This weapon is easily the best one in Mega Man 8. The flaws are there and they aren't great, but this weapon is still really good. Number 14, Flame Blast. This weapon has you shoot fire a short distance away from you. The distance can be extended depending on how high in the air you are before shooting it. If this weapon hits the ground or most walls, it will create a flame pillar that rises twice before disappearing. The Flame Blast can also melt ice walls, which show up in a few stages. It can pierce through enemies if it kills them, which can hurt even more enemies. Up to 3 of them can be on screen at once. This weapon is the weakness of Blizzard Man, Rounder 2, and X Crusher. It's the secondary weakness of Plant Man, and it does 1 damage to every other boss. The damage of this weapon is the highest in the game, doing the same damage as Plant Barrier and Centaur Flash. The Flame Blast is really good if you know how to use it well. You can shut down certain spawn points of enemies, you can tear through several of them, and the damage combined with the ammo makes this a very effective weapon. Its only real con is that it can struggle against some enemies in the air, which does hurt, don't get me wrong, but everything else makes up for that. Number 13, Drill Bomb. This weapon will shoot a drill directly forward. When the drill hits a wall or an enemy that it can't hit, it explodes. You can also explode it early by shooting before it hits an enemy. It can also pierce and explode these barriers. The explosion has a decent radius. Usually exploding all enemies, the explosion looks like it should. This weapon is the weakness of Tone Man, if you would even need it anyway. In the second phase of Wily Machine 4, it's a secondary weakness of Mafraya, Square Machine, and Cossack Twins. While it's not effective against Taiko Trash, using it will turn the boss's hitbox off, making the fight a joke. 9 bosses take 1 damage from it, and 3 are immune to it. This weapon does good damage, being able to kill most tanky enemies in 2 to 3 hits. It's good against most mini bosses as long as you can't easily hit them, and it's good against many enemies, although it deans on some of them, and it's good against a decent amount of bosses. Being able to explode the bomb manually can help you get an enemy you missed, or explode several of them at once. All of this makes this weapon very strong, and it ends up at this spot. Number 12, Dust Crusher. This weapon shoots a dust projectile. When it hits an enemy, it explodes into 4 pieces of shrapnel that travel in every diagonal direction, doing more damage if they hit anything. It's the weakness of Skullman, Square Machine, and the Cossack Catcher. It's the secondary weakness of Dive Man, Pharaoh Man, Mafraya, and the Metal Daddy. Only the Wily Capsule is immune to it, so everything else takes only 1 damage from it. The damage on this weapon is good, and it's good enough to at worst 2-shot most enemies. The shrapnel can do more damage to enemies and get other enemies as well. It can do extra damage to mini bosses for the same reason. It may be hard to hit enemies with the shrapnel, as it is small, but it can still hit a lot of things if you aim right. It's just pretty good overall. Number 11, Silver Tomahawk. This weapon shoots a tomahawk in an upward arc, with a slight downward dip before it rises upward. Up to 2 of them can be on screen at once, and they pierce through enemies that die to it. This weapon is the weakness of Yamato Man, Power Piston, and all phases of Wily Machine 6. It's the secondary weakness of Rounder 2, and every other boss takes 1 damage from it. The damage isn't the highest of the special weapons in this game, but it's still very good. The Silver Tomahawk is a very useful and versatile weapon, and it can get enemies at certain angles or points no other weapon can, except for Centaur Flash of course. The rise is good against enemies in the air or in weird spots, and the same thing can be said for the downward dip, but to a lesser extent. While this weapon's arcs can be a bit weird, when you get used to it, it's incredibly effective, in a nice way to end off the A tier. S tier weapons are just overpowered. That's it, really. These weapons are good basically everywhere. They may have a flaw or two, but they practically don't matter in the grand scheme of things. There is no reason to not use them at least somewhat often, as doing so is an active detriment. There's 10 weapons here, and all of them are broken. Number 10, Chain Blast. The normal version throws bombs that will float and stick to enemies and surfaces, traveling slowly. Up to 4 can be thrown at once, doing more damage and having more range if they're in close proximity. The Power Gear version skips the sticking and setup, just becoming a giant bomb. Its explosion is as big and as powerful as the normal version when all 4 bombs are chained together, albeit the Power Gear version can't stick to enemies, lock onto them, and there can only be 1 at a time. To detonate the bombs, you can either wait for the bombs to explode on their own, or blow them up manually by pressing down and shoot. They can destroy the stone towers and Blockman stage in the exploding crates. For the normal version, 1 weapon ammo is consumed for every bomb you throw, which means it has a total of 28, 14, 9, and 7 uses for each version. For the Power Gear version, 5 weapon ammo is consumed for every use, for a total of 6 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Blockman and Yellow Devil Mark III. The normal version solos every boss except Torchman and Mavern, and the Power Gear version can solo every boss except Torchman, Blastman, Mavern, and the second phase of Wily Machine 11, so all of the bosses I just mentioned resist the Chain Blast to varying degrees, but if you want to be technical, they all get soloed by the Singular Bomb. The damage of this weapon can either be very bad, not even one-shotting a Met, to incredibly high damage, quickly killing a bunch of mini-bosses, and some can even be 1 or 2-shotted. This can be inconsistent though, as some take more than 6 Power Gear Chain Blast to kill. The sticking of the normal bombs is good for getting to certain enemies, and since you're faster than the bombs, it's easy to set up the bigger versions. The explosion of this weapon is either tiny, or really big depending on how many bombs or what version you used. It being effective on so many bosses is great, as it's a super reliable secondary weakness, especially the Power Gear version. Sometimes the bombs will keep going and not stick to an enemy, which can be a little annoying, but you can either set them up beforehand or just get really close. The only big problem this weapon has is the ammo, as you can run out fast if you use the bigger versions. The smaller versions don't struggle from this problem as much, but then you get less damage in range, which can suck against the bigger enemies, and this weapon initially can be hard to use, although it's easy enough when you learn everything. The normal version of this weapon is pretty good, albeit a little tricky to learn, while the Power Gear version is just broken, spamming nuclear bombs against every other big enemy, and it's very simple to use too. This weapon is stupid good, with the ammo problem being the only reason why it's not number 1. If this was a personal ranking based on fun factor though, it's easily in its own tier. Number 9, Pile Driver. Both versions of this weapon will make you do a dash-like boost forward, stabbing the jackhammer into things. You can pierce through enemies that die to it, and if they don't, you recoil off of them, which does even more damage. It can also be caused by colliding into a surface. The distance of the dash is decreased if you use it in the air, but not by much. The power gear version does more damage, and the dash goes a farther distance. The normal version uses free weapon energy per use, for a total of 10 uses before having to refill. The power gear version uses 4 weapon energy per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. This weapon is the weakness of Bounce Man in Modern, but it is risky against it. It's a secondary weakness of every Robot Master except Impact Man, Yellow Devil Mark III, in both phases of Wily Machine 11. Impact Man is the only one that takes 2 damage from this weapon against either version, and the power gear version does at least 2 more damage to every boss except Impact Man. This weapon does good damage, especially the power gear version, and if an enemy doesn't die, the recoil's damage will most likely get them. Against bosses, it's good against all of them except Impact Man himself, although it's not exactly safe, as you'll probably get hit after the boss is hit, and for mini bosses it is more of the same, but it does depend on the mini boss themselves. This is the best special weapon in terms of movement on this list, by far, as you get a very long dash very fast. The only issues with it are that both versions spend a decent amount of ammo, and that it can be risky to use, since if something doesn't get one shot, or you get hit mid-air, that can lead to your death. This weapon is amazing, and absolutely belongs up here. Number 8, Thunder Beam. This weapon shoots 3 beams of electricity, one directly forward, one upward, and one downward. They can also break the same heavy rocks the Super Arm can pick up. It's the main weakness of Iceman in Yellow Devil. It's a secondary weakness of Bomb Man, Copy Robot, and CWU-1OP. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. One reason why the Thunder Beam is up here is because 3 of them are shot, which can cover many different angles. And these Thunder Beams are big, so they'll often hit something. They also do a lot of damage, which one-shots many enemies. The only flaw it really has is being pretty mad against Sniper Jills and Picklemans, but that's it. It's amazing everywhere else. Number 7, Firestorm. This weapon shoots a fireball directly forward, and it creates a fire shield around you, which deals damage to anything close to you. It also pierces through shields. It's the weakness of Bomb Man in Wily Machine's first phase. It's a secondary weakness of Cut Man, Guts Man, Yellow Devil, Copy Robot, and CWU-1OP. Every other boss takes 1 damage from it. The shield is very useful for enemies that get close. In both the shield and fireball do good damage, so most enemies die to them. Due to how simple this weapon is, it's also very effective against most bosses, and you can hit a boss twice if you get close and lucky enough against one, happening with Wily Machine most often. It's good in almost every scenario, and it's usable in a lot of places. That's all I can say about it really. It's a very good weapon, with the only flaw being that the fireball and shield aren't too big, but you usually won't notice that. Number 6, Triple Blade. This weapon shoots 3 blades. One goes straight, 2 go diagonally up or down at 2 different angles. They go diagonally up if you use them on the ground. If you use this weapon in the air, they go diagonally down. The damage of this weapon increases on how many blades hit an enemy, and they can hit several enemies in the same use, and the blades can pierce through enemies they kill. They can also hit shield enemies in the front, but this doesn't happen every time. This weapon is the weakness of Strike Man in Weapons Archive Woodman. Every other boss depends on how close you are to them, but it'll always be 1 damage from a moderate or far distance, and 2 to 3 damage from a closer point-blank range. The Wily Capsule and the Mega Man Killers are immune to it though. This weapon is also good against the Block Devil when it hides below the platforms. The blades on their own already do good damage, but they murder almost everything if all 3 hit, especially up close. They also hit at good angles too, which is helpful against enemies in the air or in pits. This weapon can miss, although it's rare, and the angles of the blades depending on if you're in the air or on ground can be hard to get used to at first. It's by far the best weapon in Mega Man 10, no questions asked. Number 5, Magma Bazooka. This weapon shoots 3 balls of magma in different directions, diagonally up, straight forward, and diagonally down. This weapon can also be charged, and it charges very fast, in less than a second. The charged version will do triple the damage of the uncharged version. The uncharged version doing 1 damage per magma ball, so the charged version does 3 damage per magma ball. For the uncharged version, 1 point of weapon energy is consumed every other use, for a total of 56 ammo, even if you do weapon swap before every other use. As for the charged version, it consumes 3 weapon ammo per use, for a total of 9 uses before having to refill. You can also charge it without spending ammo, by holding the shoot button before pausing, or during a screen transition. This weapon is the weakness of Hornet Man in Mega Mech Shark. The damage you do on every other boss will depend on how close you are to them, but it'll always be 1 damage from a moderate or far distance, and 2 to 3 from close range or point blank. It can be good against the spike pushers, pushing several spikes at once, in the second phase of Wily Machine 9. 9. The damage of this weapon is dependent on distance. It could be okay at a far distance, but it's amazing up close, especially with the charged version, as you can do the most raw damage out of any special weapon in this game. It also covers good angles. Both diagonal angles can get annoying enemies, with the charged version being especially great here. This weapon's only issue is that the charged version does spend a decent amount of ammo, but that's barely an issue if you use it right. This weapon is very strong throughout the game. It's easily the best weapon in Mega Man 9. Number 4, Flash Stopper. The Flash Stopper stops time, freezing all enemies, and some stage hazards for 8 seconds. If you slide while the weapon's active, the timer stops until the slide is over, extending how long time stopped. You can use the Mega Buster while time is stopped, but you can't use the charge shot. Most shielded enemies will act as if they have no shield, allowing you to damage them without issue. You can't switch weapons while time is stopped. This weapon uses 4 weapon energy per use, for a total of 7 uses before having to refill. Pharaoh Man is the only boss weak to it, as he is frozen in place for the duration. All other bosses are immune to its time stop, but not the buster from this weapon. While its worst flaw is against bosses, and even then it's just a worser Mega Buster, so it isn't even that bad, just you can't freeze the bosses until they die. Everywhere else it's broken. It can very easily kill all enemies and mini bosses, and certain stage hazards stop being an issue, if they even were being an issue in the first place. It's also good for just ignoring enemies, if you have to for time's sake. Its only flaw is the amount of energy it consumes, but that's an issue you either won't notice, or just don't care about due to the benefits. If you want to make the game way easier to go through, the Flash Stopper is your best friend. Number 3, Metal Blade. I already did an in-depth explanation of this weapon in my Metal Blade video. Take a look at that video if you want to. This weapon shoots a metal blade. They can be shot into 8 cardinal directions, and up to 3 of them can be on screen. 4 uses of this weapon consume 1 point of energy, for 112 ammo in total, or infinite if you weapon swap before every 4th use. You will stay in place if you use it on the ground. If you input up and down at the same time, or just hold these inputs down, you can have the thrown metal blade become stationary, which will have it stay in place until it hits something, or disappears via screen scrolling. If you have 3 of them, you cannot shoot at all. This weapon is the weakness of Bubble Man, and the secondary weakness of Woodman, Flash Man, Pico Pico Kun, and Metal Man. It's also really good against Wily Machine too. 3 bosses take 1 damage from it, 7 are immune to it, with the alien healing from it. To summarize what makes it so broken, it's extremely versatile, does good damage, is spammable, and can be used a lot. The only flaw I can somewhat give it is that some enemies and bosses are immune to it, but that's it. This weapon is just broken, and its sheer versatility replaces nearly every weapon in Mega Man 2. Nothing else I can say about it that hasn't been said before. Number 2, Pharaoh Shot. If you hold the shoot button, the Pharaoh Shot will start charging above you. You can keep holding the shoot button to keep it above you. The Pharaoh Shot will do damage to any enemies that touch it, and it stays around after it kills an enemy. If it disappears or gets interrupted, you will still be able to use its main attack, and you can also weapon swap to reuse its initial part, and the charging part of it does not consume weapon ammo. When you release the shoot button, you will throw the Pharaoh Shot. This part of it consumes weapon energy. You can throw it in every cardinal direction except directly up and down. This weapon has 3 variants: Uncharged, which is small, Semi-Charged, which is bigger and does the same damage. Both the uncharged and semi-charged versions spend 1 weapon energy. And Charged, which is by far the biggest of the 3, does more damage than a Buster's charge shot, and consumes 2 weapon energy, for a total of 14 uses before having to refill. It will also pierce through enemies and manages to kill. Also, via another glitch, you can have 2 Pharaoh Shots active at the same time. One of them is always in a charging state, but you can still use the other one freely. If this happens, have fun being death itself until the screen scrolls. This weapon is the weakness of Rain Man, Cockroach Twins, and the Wily Capsule. 5 bosses are immune to it. Any boss that isn't immune or weak to it takes 1 damage from the uncharged and semi-charged shots, and take 3 damage from the charged shot. The charged version of this weapon does amazing damage to enemies, with the uncharged and semi-charged versions not being too bad in damage either. The Pharaoh Shot above you is also good, as you can do damage to enemies without spending weapon energy, and it covers the upward angle to an extent. The Pharaoh Shot is an amazing weapon. While it can't cover directly up or down, and it spends a decent amount of weapon energy, the weapon helps make up for that with passive damage via the Pharaoh Shot being above you, covering the up angle somewhat, its amazing damage, and just being an extremely good and versatile weapon. After everything that's been said, all of this time, all of those weapons listed, those who are watching and keeping track should know which one is at number 1, but in case you don't or just forgot, Number 1, Shadow Blade. This weapon can be thrown in 5 of the 8 cardinal directions. It cannot be thrown downward at all. The Shadow Blade has decent range, and it comes back to where you threw it, disappearing when it gets there. 1 point of weapon energy is consumed every other use, for a total of 56 ammo, or infinite if you weapon swap before every other use. This weapon is the weakness of Magnet Man, Spark Man, Doc Bubble, Kamegoro Maker, and the first phase of Gamma. It's a secondary weakness of Needle Man, Gemini Man, Snake Man, Shadow Man, Doc Heat, Doc Metal, Doc Quick, Doc Flash, Doc Wood, Yellow Devil Mark II, Holograph Mega Man, in both phases of Wily Machine Free. It does 1 damage to 2 bosses, and every other boss is immune to it. So yeah, that's a lot to say the least. The Shadow Blade does decent damage to everything it can hit. It won't kill some enemies as quickly as other weapons, but the angles of the Shadow Blade can get enemies that other weapons can't, like the annoying Beast Summoners and Hardman stage. The Shadow Blade doesn't have the downward angles, the spammability, in the full screen range of the Metal Blade, but the Shadow Blade return to you where it was thrown is a nice little side grade, as it can hit an enemy if you missed hitting it on the initial throw. And the main thing this weapon does better than the Metal Blade is not having as many things be immune to it, as it's very effective against almost every enemy and boss in the game. It's a versatile weapon that can be used almost anywhere, which is why it's up here at number 1. And with the Shadow Blade at number 1, the list is finally done. Here's how it looks. Pause if you want to look at everything. I also have the link in the description if you want to take a better look at it. Oh my god, we're finally done. I can escape. Why am I still trapped? Jokes aside though, we do have one more thing to go over. What game has the best overall set of special weapons? Again, I'll be going from worst to best. I'll be putting the placements of the special weapons from the respective games, and dividing them by the amount of weapons. You're not 5 years old, you know how the mean works. So let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Last place and nobody's surprise is Mega Man 5, with an average score of 67.5. While this weapon set isn't as bad as I thought it was not even a few months before working on this video, with Gyro Attack and Crystal Eye being in B tier, they are all on the lower half of the list, ultimately making this game have the worst set overall. Mega Man 2 with an average score of 58.8 isn't too far from being last, with only the Metal Blade and Quick Boomerang being past the top 40. Everything else is in the 60s or lower, which really hurts this game's placement. Its weapon balance is not good to say the least. Mega Man 10 is at 9th, with an average score of 52.1. Triple Blade at 6 can only do so much, as every weapon after Wheel Cutter is in the lower half, and almost half of the weapons are in the 60s or lower, which cements it here. At 8th place is Mega Man 7, having an average score of 49.1, while Slash Claw, Junk Shield, and Noise Crush are pretty good. Wild Coil, Scorch Wheel, and Freeze Cracker are in the 70s or lower. Freeze Cracker being near the bottom hurts a lot. Mega Man 1, the start of the series, places at 7th with an average score of 42.9. This game's really funny, as Thunder Beam and Firestorm are within the top 10, while Hyper Bomb and Super Armor in the bottom 3. Rolling Cutter and Ice Slasher helps balance things out, but it strangely doesn't end up in the middle. That goes to Mega Man 8 at 6th place, with an average score of 40.8. This one has a unique issue, not being that its weapons are all over the place, but they're mostly clumped towards the middle of the list. Flash Bomb does help it out being at 15th, but that only helps out so much. Mega Man 3 is the most chaotic game on the list, barely outmatching Mega Man 1 in that regard, being 5th place with an average score of 39.8. This game has Shadow Blade and Spark Shock being 1st and last respectively, with the rest being spread across the higher tiers, but Needle Cannon in A and Top Spin in C tier help make it not have Mega Man 8's issue. Mega Man 6 is at 4th place, with an average score of 38.5. The weapon set overall is a lot better than I remembered it being, with Silver Tomahawk, Flame Blast, and Night Crusher in the top 20, but making this video made me learn that Blizzard Attack is mediocre, and Plant Barrier is somehow even worse. This would have been lower than Mega Man 3 if I didn't move Hard Knuckle a few spots down last minute. Mega Man 9 cracks the top 3, being 3rd with an average score of 33.3 exactly. Magma Bazooka being 5th helps a lot, with Laser Trident and Jewel Satellite stabilizing its spot thanks to them being in A tier, while Tornado Blow, Black Hole Bomb, and Hornet Chaser are on the lower half. They are still above the 60s, which helps Mega Man 9 out a lot. Beating Mega Man 9 by a wide margin is Mega Man 4, with an average score of 26.3. Pharaoh Shot, Flash Stopper, Dust Crusher, and Drill Bomb are all above the top 15, and the lowest weapon, Skull Barrier, is just barely below 60th place. Mega Man 4 has some amazing weapon balance. I can't say any weapon is bad. They all have situations where they're great. Mega Man 11 is at 1st. It wins pretty easily with an average score of 18.4. before, every weapon in this game is in the upper half of the list, and all of the weapons have many situations where you can use them. 5 of the 8 weapons are above the top 32, which helps out the average score, and with that, the averages are finally laid out, and we can move on. Now, with this mammoth of a project finally done, I'm just gonna speak for a bit. I won't care about editing slip-ups too much. This has easily been the longest and most tiring video I have ever worked on, and probably will ever work on. For now at least. I'll think of something else that'll be even longer later on, I'm sure. For this video, I have done over 200 playthroughs of the classic series, and I think the same things about these games. Every single one of these games are amazing, and the special weapons are one of the bigger reasons why I think that way, especially after this. I want to thank the people who put up with me and my constant updating about this video on Discord, Blue Sky, and YouTube, those who discussed with me while I was making it and when I was streaming for the list, and for everyone who has supported me throughout this time I've had on YouTube. I can't thank any of you enough, and I want to thank you for watching this video all the way to here, or if you just wanted to see the outro. I apologize for the wait between announcing this video and when I released it. This was inevitable, but still, I don't like releasing videos a long while after I've announced them. If you have anything you want to say in the comments, whether about my list or the weapons in general, please put them down in the comments. I'll make sure to read them and most likely respond too. I have a bunch of other plans and videos I want to make, but after a video like this, I'll be taking a short break. Not too long, of course, probably a month or two while I do streams just for fun, but still. Also, if you're asking about the Mega Man X series and if I'll be doing that, not yet. I'll do that when I feel ready enough to do something like this again. I need to be healthier when making a massive video like this. Never doing something like this again this fast. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time with another video, after a little break, which I'll need for sure.